Hey guys, so today we're going to go over what point of view is, and this is something that you've probably went over in the past, so this part may be a review, but what's important for us today is to know who is telling the story and the reasons why we need to know who's telling those stories. So first we're going to go over first, second, and third person. This chart will help you determine who is telling the story. So first person, it says the story is told by one of the characters. So the key words to first person, you'll hear we, me, and I. So if I, me, and we are used repeatedly, that means the story is told in first person point of view. Second person point of view, it says the story is told by a narrator talking to the reader. So the keywords you're going to hear are you and your. So if you hear those two words repeatedly, the point of view is going to be second person. And then third person, the story is told by a narrator. Well, we have two different types of third person. We have third person limited, which means the narrator knows the thoughts of one character. So whenever you hear them go by names like Tiffany or their actual name, that is going to be limited. But if you hear the narrator, know the thoughts of every character, and you hear them or they, that's going to be third person omniscient. But either way, those are both third person. Some other keywords, he, she, and they. So he and she will probably be the limited because he would be one character, she would be one character, but they would be the omniscient. Alright, so understanding perspective. First, you need to know what perspective means. Whenever you think of the word perspective, what do you think? It means the way the thoughts towards something or the attitude towards something, how something is seen. That's what perspective means. So how does a story change based on who is reading it? Think about you telling a story versus me telling a story or something that had happened. Not necessarily a book or anything, but just a story in general. Think about a situation that happened in class. How is it going to be told different from me compared to you? And then again, how would you tell a story versus how would your mom tell a situation? Again, those are probably going to be two totally different recounts just because you're younger and your mom is older. How would you recount a story compared to your best friend? That one may be a little bit closer, but it's still going to be two totally different people telling the story, so they're going to be two different perspectives. Some things to keep in mind when reading. Does the narrator have all the information when telling a story? If not, how would the perspective change? So again, how's the attitude towards something or the way something is viewed going to change? Think about whenever, or if you bump into somebody on the playground. Imagine that the person you bumped into told the teacher you were being really, really mean, but whenever you tell the story, it's completely different, and you think it was just, or it was just an accident, but the person knew you had bumped into them, and maybe you were running, and they just thought you were being really, really mean. You see how the perspectives changed? Those two stories have two totally different ways of being told, just because two different people tell them. So you need to compare that to like a book. So think of how the story would be told if someone like Serafina was reading it or the Man in the Black Cloak was reading it. It'd be two totally different books at that case because one is the hero telling the story and one is the antagonist telling the story. So there would be two totally different stories. Another thing to keep in mind, is the narrator reliable? What things would change in the story if the narrator wasn't reliable? What does reliable mean again? It means how much can you trust them? How much of the truth are they going to tell? Excuse me. Are they going to make things up? Are they always telling the truth? So narrators are going to have motivations when telling a story. Think about, is the narrator going to try to change your mind about something? Are they trying to get you to do something differently? So if the narrator is trying to change your mind about something, their perspective on the story is going to change. The way they tell the story is going to change because they're trying to persuade you to do something or to change your mind about something. So the way the story is going to be told is completely different compared to if they weren't trying to get you to do something. I want you to think good readers will always ask questions when you read, and I always tell you this in class. You always need to ask questions while you read. For understanding point of view, think about who the narrator is. What is the point of view, and is that narrator reliable? Can we trust them? Are they going to tell the complete truth? Think about who the narrator is and why is it important to know. So I told you that the narrator, depending on who the narrator is, it may change the story a little bit. Also, you need to determine if the narrator is reliable and if we can trust them, like I already said. The best way to get to understand who the narrator is, what point of view is being told, you just have to keep practicing. So one of the things I would do is every time I read, I would say, what point of view is this being told through? Is it first, second, or third person limited, third person omniscient? Eventually it's going to be super easy to do. So to review, we've talked about what point of view is, and we talked about first person, second person, and third person. The keywords that will help us determine who is telling the story. And then we talked about why it's important to know who is telling the story. It gives us perspective and how the stories would change based on who is telling it. The best example I can think of right now is in Seraphina. Imagine if Seraphina was telling you the story compared to someone like the Man in the Black Cloak, because that is the villain and the hero, so the stories are going to change completely. Remember to always ask questions when you read. Try to figure out every time you read who the narrator is and what point of view it's being told through. So hopefully this will help you with your vocabulary for this week. And it was also supposed to go with, author's purpose. But the main thing I want you to get from it is how stories can change based on who is telling it and how the attitude about the story is going to change, okay? So if you have any questions, shoot me an email or message me on Class Dojo or on Canvas, and I will get back with you as soon as I can, okay? I miss you guys.